Hi everybody, this is foXnoMad, and today I want to help you travel smarter by doing a little bit of a Q&A. A lot of Q&As going around YouTube lately, and obviously most of us are not traveling, so I figured it was a good time to do a Q&A, and I've also been planning to do a Q&A because of all the questions and comments I've gotten on my recent Pakistan videos, so I figured it was a good time to do a Pakistan travel Q&A. Alright, so the first question from Techno Society: how's your visit in Pakistan? Well, I think the videos show it that I had a really good time. Pakistan was a very unexpected country for me in the sense that it was completely not what I was expecting, and in a very good way. And I think a lot of travelers who would consider Pakistan would probably feel that way. And I think that's why, if you see my video about Pakistan being on the cusp of tourism, I think that's why it's on the cusp, because a lot of those preconceptions from the past have still remained. So Pakistan is still clearing up its reputation from that. But its tourism infrastructure is very strong. There's a lot to see and a lot to do there. And there's a big change going on in Pakistan. So I think it makes a very unique travel destination. And that all of that surprised me. Okay, second question: where can Pakistan improve? I'm expecting a whole list. All right, well, I can't give you a whole list because I'm not really qualified for a whole list. I think honestly, Pakistan is doing a very good job in terms of tourism infrastructure. And also its security situation has improved a lot. It's got the pieces really in place to become an upcoming major travel destination. But I think that's just with time. It's going to take time for the tourism industry there to build up and recover and for it to take off. But the pieces are definitely in place. Okay, Arslan's asking, what countries will you be traveling again in the future, and any plans to come back to Pakistan? Well, I started travel blogging, for those of you who don't know, over 10 years ago, and I started writing and doing photography. And at that time, my mission was to visit every country in the world. You can check out my About page, which talks about me starting the blog and then going off. And for those of you who know me just from YouTube, I really didn't do YouTube at all up until about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Before that, I'd have the couple of smattering of YouTube videos that weren't really anything. So the videos were kind of a new addition, but I've been blogging this whole time. I've been trying to go to every country in the world, and I'm getting closer. I think I'm about 80 countries in, maybe 90 or so. So it's not like something I'm rushing to complete, but it's just sort of a general goal, which helps lead me to a lot of different destinations that I might not have visited otherwise. And as far as whether or not I'll return, if I have any plans, those of you who've been watching my best city to visit travel tournament, I'll link down there. As of the time of the filming of this video, it's still going on. It's in the last day of voting, and Islamabad and Singapore are tied. So they're basically neck and neck, and I don't know which one will win. We'll find out in about 12 hours from now. But whichever city wins, basically there's 8 cities left now in the tournament. There will be 2. And the city that wins, I always visit that city in the year. And Islamabad has a good chance of at least going to the next round. And if it wins the next 2 rounds and wins the entire best city tournament, you can be sure I'll be in Islamabad later this year. All right, the next question by another: what is your experience while traveling in Pakistan, and do you recommend to others? So what's my experience? It's hard to really sum up in just one quick little synopsis, but I'd say unexpected. That's probably the thing that comes to mind the most. Unexpected in a good way. That's my experience traveling in Pakistan. And would I recommend it to others? Well, like I said in my cusp video, I think it's not a destination yet that's for everybody. I think right now it's good for backpackers, it's good for adventurous travelers, it's good for outdoor travelers, it's good with people who already have some travel experience. It's not a place that people who don't travel very frequently are going to just hop into. It's not for luxury travelers, those type of travelers who are a lot more cautious, who are a lot more, really they want the path to be worn out for them before they arrive. Pakistan doesn't have that yet, but with a couple of more years of travelers arriving, then you might start to see those travelers coming in. But it's always the first adopters of backpackers and adventure travelers. Those are the people that are going to come first. Those are the people that are going to wear that travel path first for everybody else to arrive down in a couple of years from now. All right, next question from Hidden: how was the food and the people of Pakistan? What are your advice to other tourists related to Pakistan? Food, very, very good, very flavorful, and very spicy. I loved it. The food I had in Pakistan was very good. I can't think of a bad meal that I had. Again, the flavors were just something that stand out to me, that the food was very flavorful. And when Pakistani people say spicy food, I mean, they mean spicy. Like I like spicy food, and I can handle a fair amount of spice. But in Pakistan, especially in Karachi, the spice levels are just up here. So if you love spicy food, then it's definitely a good destination for you to go to try the food. And what is your advice to other tours related to Pakistan? Well, to be honest with you, it's hard to kind of really generalize that. It's because the country is so large. So as I say that now, I'd say try to see as much of the country as you can. Pakistan is a huge country. Don't just go to one city and think you've seen it all. Definitely try to get up north. Try to, at least Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, I think is a good sort of triangle, at least to start out with. But there's a lot more to see. If you're an adventure traveler, definitely there's stuff for you. If you're a foodie, there's stuff for you. If you like culture, there's stuff for you. But I would try to get around to as much of the country as you can in the time of your trip. All right, Aiza, how similar are Pakistan and India? What's the major difference between the two countries? Where do you see Pakistan in the coming years? So that's a good question, actually. And I've been to India a lot. I've been to India probably 15 times or so. And it's hard not to compare the two countries. And actually, I've been thinking about doing an entire video on this topic. And it might be a little controversial. Actually, I'm pretty sure it will be controversial, that nobody might agree with me. But it's hard not to do a comparison when you've been to both places, because they are right next to each other. There's a common history there. When you think of Pakistan, the country you think of after that is probably India. And with India, it's probably the same. You think of Pakistan. And as a traveler, as someone who's a guest from the outside, who's not from either country, it's hard not to make those comparisons. I think that's a little bit of a deeper question that I'll probably make a full video on. But in short, I'd say one thing that just jumps out to you is Pakistan is a lot less crowded. I know that sounds stupid. It really does sound stupid, because obviously the population there is a lot less. But it just doesn't feel as overwhelmingly crowded as India does. And that was one of the first things that surprised me. I was expecting Pakistani cities to be much more crowded and jumbled and sort of more overwhelming, and they weren't like that. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the population is just not as big. But in both places, people are very friendly. I think with Pakistan, it doesn't have as many tourists coming. It's got much less tourists coming. So when you go there, you really feel like I've said a lot of times, you feel like you're the first traveler who's ever arrived there, which is a very unique experience for somebody who travels as much as I do. So it gives you kind of a different look at a country that's really on the cusp. Whereas in India, they see a lot of tourists, so the tourism industry there is very well developed. The tourist trail is very well developed, so you don't feel like you're the first person who's there. With Pakistan, you do feel that. There are advantages and disadvantages to both, but I'll leave it at that. And maybe if you want me to make a video about comparing the two countries, definitely let me know in the comments below. All right, next question. Abdul, give me your recommendations to enhance and update the tourism infrastructure and facilities in Pakistan to facilitate a foreign tourist. Just having sort of an easier infrastructure, and then having more tourists come and make it easier for people who actually show up. And I think that would be the biggest improvement that I would make. So I think that's just going to come with time, with more people coming there and more people coming there to travel. You're going to get these services which are really catered toward tourists to make it a lot easier. Now, adventure travelers, backpackers, they're familiar with the manual process. They're familiar with maybe going to the bus station to buy tickets. But to really expand that tourism infrastructure to the masses, you've got to make that process a lot easier. And that's not just only true of Pakistan, but that's true of everywhere. You're going to want to make it as easy as possible for people to travel and book things in a country. A lot of people like tour packages where everything is set up for them. So I think that's again going to happen with time. As the tourism industry in Pakistan grows, it's going to be a growing business. More people are going to want to get into that business. And eventually you're going to just have more options for a lot more different types of traveler. All right, next question from Hamza. Share your difficulty in traveling experience. Well, I don't really have one where it's like a difficult travel experience or something horrible that's happened to me. I've had kind of weird things happen to me, and I should probably make a separate video about that. Attempted robbery and that kind of thing. I have some good stories that probably haven't really told. Well, I definitely haven't told on YouTube. They might be somewhere on my site, but that might be something interesting to talk about. But as far as difficulties in travel, honestly, for me, I've done it so much that the difficulties are sort of expected, and they're more hassles than anything, like getting through airport security. I travel with a lot of equipment: laptop, camera, light, microphone hidden back there, 2 other cameras, a whole bunch of other equipment. So going through airport security is a nightmare for me. I have the system pretty well down. I have packing cubes and all that, but it's just a huge pain. I don't really like it. Going through airport security is probably the thing that I just dread the most because it's just such a hassle all the time. I got to take all my stuff out. But as far as when I'm actually at a destination, can't think of anything horrible that's happened. It has happened. Bad things have happened. I wouldn't say they're horrible things, but I remember almost exclusively the good things. Sorry if that's not a great answer to your question, but that's it. All right, the next question, Suma, what's the best thing about Pakistan? Have you ever felt uncomfortable in Pakistan? Best thing about Pakistan, how unexpected it is and feeling like you're the only tourist. That's really nice. And people appreciating tourists in the sense that a lot of people haven't seen tourists. So they're very friendly. A couple of people bought me tea. And so you get this experience where you're just really welcomed as a tourist. Whereas in Paris, for example, you wouldn't have that because they just have so many tourists that you're no big deal. And if I ever felt uncomfortable in Pakistan, no. I mean, nothing made me feel uncomfortable there. I think as a traveler, when you arrive in a new city, you're always a little bit on alert. So you don't know what the norms are. You don't know if somebody's coming up to you and buying you something. You don't know if that's a scam. You don't know if that's normal. You don't know if they're just being very welcoming. So there's this adjustment period that you have to make. And as a traveler with a lot of experience, generally, if you travel a lot, you probably know that you got to build that up, and you can build that up pretty quickly. You get a good sort of traveler spidey sense that you can kind of feel out a situation. But in the beginning, because of that adjustment period, you don't know what the norms are. And I guess the uncomfortable times were just more me in my head trying to figure out, are people really this friendly? And luckily for me, people are that friendly. All right, the next question, Asim, which trip was the most remarkable experience of your life? Again, it's so difficult to narrow that down into a single response. I really can't think of a single experience that's just absolutely the best travel experience. I have a couple of favorites, a couple of things that have happened that have been a really great experience, but I'd say recently, Pakistan, definitely one of my favorite travel experiences, definitely would recommend to a lot of people. How did you find Pakistan? Will you visit again? I found Pakistan because I'm trying to go to every country in the world, and it's been a country I've been interested in for a long time, so it was just next up on my list. I was in the area, so I visited Pakistan. Will I visit again? Probably. But best city to visit travel tournament? I'll definitely come this year if Islamabad wins, because it's still in the tournament. Make sure you vote. Hassan asks, when will the Q&A video be coming? Well, it's here. Next question by Ibrahim. Did anyone invite you to study Islam? They did not. That did not happen to me. Aftab asks, what advice would you want to give Pakistani as a tourist? That's an interesting question. What advice would I give to a Pakistani person that meets a tourist? I think honestly, I think that question was already answered for me. People were just super nice, super welcoming. I think if you're just being nice and welcoming, that's the best thing you can do for a tourist. I always look at tourists as a guest, and I think a lot of tourists leave feeling as a guest, and the impression that they get from a place really has a lot to do with how they're treated by the locals. And I think a lot of places that have already a lot of tourists, really they lose a little bit of that. So they're not as friendly toward tourists. They're maybe a little bit more jaded, and so people leave a little bit more jaded, and that's just going to happen when you have a bunch of tourists, again, London, Paris, and that. So I think finding those really unique local experiences get more difficult as the place gets more popular for tourists. Pakistan doesn't have that many tourists, so you still get that really local welcoming feeling, and I think that's great. Honestly, that's left me with a really good impression of Pakistan as I left, and also your support on all the videos. Clearly that hospitality shows there as well. So thank you. All right, so I think we've got through most of the questions, got a lot of repeats there, but I hope this Q&A has sort of helped you answer some of the questions that you've been leaving on the comments, and thanks for leaving your questions. Like I said, I've been blogging. I started in more than 10 years ago, been to almost 100 countries now. I'm sort of getting close to that number, and I want to go to all the countries in the world. So I hope you'll stick around and check out more of my travel videos, check out my site. All that stuff linked below. Thanks very much for watching. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons, and I'll see you in the next video. Those are the people that are gonna Those are the people that are gonna wear that. So, a lot of birds today.